I actually have a microphone here, so I finally found that. Sorry. So I'll bring it around and people can ask questions. I'm surprised. It's
yeah, I know, I can't help myself. Just an observation and then a couple observations. One is that I've been doing the feeding the folks for 40 years in a soup kitchen. You know, the one difference is I take no satisfaction in doing that. So just want to go on note for that. The other thing is about nonviolence. A quirky thing, visiting Korea. You guys know the Korean island, Jeju, where a Catholic group of people and peace activists have been trying to stop a Navy base. How many are aware of that crowd? Yeah, great. So we're all on the same page. And I spent 2 months there with Jess, and daily mass, daily rosary, on the line, intermixed with activists. It was an extraordinary thing. But Koreans have a temperament. You notice they have a temperament? Their food is hot, and they get really mad and angry. And they've seen so many of us kind of like activists, plowshares, people from the States come over. And when we see them get angry with each other at the line, yeah, let's pavement, push, and we really feel a little squirmy, you know, and we say the word nonviolence, you know. And on one of the last days I was there, Father Moon, you know who Father Moon is? He's like the Barragans, him and his brothers do time, and they're like the Barragans of Korea. And so Jess and I brought this up. I had more than Jess. I said, you know, we're a little uncomfortable with the way, you know, at the line doesn't feel nonviolent. He said, nonviolent. You Americans, you speak about nonviolence. Nonviolence is the word of the empire. We are not violent. Just like that, like jumping up. We are not violent. And then I said to Father Moon, you know, I've been here long enough to really appreciate the temperament of our Koreans. And you guys get real excited, or you're real friendly. Ask me this. I says, how many guns do you have in Korea? And he says, guns? Guns? Nobody has guns in Korea. The police, the military. I says, oh, well, we have more guns in civilian hands than we have people in the United States. I says, we have to talk about nonviolence because it's sort of like saying, I'm not American like Americans are. It's who we are. And that's not what Gandhi had to deal with. It's a first world plague.
Thank you. Was there a question?
The Gandhian vision, because the risk level that we take in this room, some of us consider it considerable, I think a piece of cake, compared to what the risk level Gandhi and his patriots had to do just showing up at a demonstration. So we got to do something different as Americans. And the Plowshares Action is an example of what we've produced. It raises very important questions Americans need to deal with, like our property fetish. Yeah. And what's nonviolent? See, those are the questions that this movement's been immersed in.
Sorry. There are two things that you brought up and I'd like to refer to. One of them is Gandhi had this knack of recognizing who has the capability of suffering, going into prisons and being ill-treated and who doesn't have that. And so he was able to, those who didn't have that ability to do such thing, they were channeled into constructive action, to working in society, to lift them up economically and otherwise, and educating people. And those who had the ability, they were taken into the fight, the demonstrations, and going into prisons and so on. So we need to be aware of that not all people have that ability to suffer the way we suffer. And don't expect everybody to do that. The other thing that has been troubling me for a long time, and I don't know how to resolve this, is that the peace movement all over the world is fragmented. Everybody is working for peace, but everybody wants peace in their own way. Now, I have not been able to figure out why this movement needs to be called Catholic Workers' Movement. I mean, if we are all working for peace, what difference does it make whether it's Hindu peace or a Catholic peace or Muslim peace? Why do we have to put a religious label on a simple act of peace and confine it? So people who are outside the Catholic fold say, well, this is Catholic and I don't want to join them. So we have to think of this. I've been also, for many years, I've been trying to bring peace groups together, in New York State at least to begin with. And I've written to a lot of them and invited them to come to a conference like this where we can all sit together and share with each other, find out what we are doing and how best we can do it, learn from each other and have that interaction, connection with each other so that we can strengthen each other's work. Instead of that, we have all these little groups everywhere working on their own, in their own field and not knowing what's happening right next door to them. And it's this fragmentation of the peace movement that makes it ineffective. So we are not able to make an impact on the government because the government now knows that, oh, these are just a few cranks, let them do what they want to and forget about it. But if we all come together and work together, and I use this example of NRA. The NRA is also a group of small units all over the country, but they are affiliated to the national unit and they strengthen the national unit so much that they have a say in Washington and they can influence senators. We don't have that because we are fragmented. Why can't we join together and support one national unit which would have influence on people in Washington, D.C.? These are things that we need to think about and see how best we can, work together instead of working in separately in separate units.
I think around the time of the Vietnam War in this country, there were a number of national organizations which brought together different religions. I think there was there's the Catholic Peace Fellowship, but they were part of an international organization, and I don't remember the name, something about the reconciliation, which is still in existence in Rome.
Speaking to the mic, I don't think everybody can hear.
Fellowship of Reconciliation.
That's it, Fellowship of Reconciliation,
Yeah.
which is still, pardon me?
Clergy and laity concerned. Berrigan, Abraham Joshua Heschel, John Newhouse, there was a religious front.
Yes, it's still in existence in The Hague, but it's not really. I mean, it's called international, but and I think the Vietnam War was the catalyst for doing that. I think what we have, we're kind of in a stupor because there is fighting wars all over the world, but there's nothing that everybody gets together. We need to figure out a way of saying peace is still important to everybody, and let's get together in some way, even though there's not a big fighting war where my sons may be dragged off to, fight somewhere. And I think that's the problem, finding the message that will bring together all these organizations, religious and non-religious, to form that peace thing. Tom Cornell and I have been talking about that. That's something he would wish could come back again without the necessity of something like a Vietnam War or a Cold War. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Oops. Harry, you have batteries?
Okay. Why don't you take this one, and then I'll see if I can get that one perfect.
I am aware of some of the national movements like the Fellowship of Reconciliation. I was on the board for some time there. But, they have a national image, but they don't have that national power, the economic power to make a difference in Washington. So that can come only when all of us get together and start working together. But like I said earlier, we fragment our work by putting religious labels or other labels on the work, and therefore we exclude ourselves from the mainstream there. I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. When I was in Memphis in the 90s and started the institute in Memphis, Tennessee, and I think it was in 94 or 95, you might remember Rodney King was beaten up in Los Angeles. And we had a similar incident immediately after that in Memphis, when an African American who was wanted by the police was cornered in his apartment. The police surrounded the place and they asked him to come out, and he came out of the apartment holding his baby in his arms. And the police shot him straight through, the baby and the man both. And the baby was just 6-7 months old. And that really created a lot of anger in the people in Memphis. And everybody thought that Memphis was going to burn like Los Angeles burned. And I remember it was a Thursday evening, and my wife and I were sitting at home having dinner. And she asked me, she said, what would your grandfather do in these circumstances? And I said, I don't know, but I do know this much, that when he didn't have an answer to a question, he would invite everybody to come to prayers. And through the prayers, he might come up with an answer to the problem. So she said, well, we don't have an answer to this problem, so why don't we hold a prayer like he would? And I said, it's a good idea. And so next morning we went to the office and I got in touch with the board of directors and I said, we want to have an interfaith prayer service on Sunday. Can you help us organize this? And they all laughed at me and they said, you can't organize such a thing in 2 days. It takes 2 weeks to organize it. And I said, no, we can't wait for 2 weeks. If your house is on fire right now, you can't wait for 2 weeks for the water supply to come. So we have to do something immediately. And so my wife and I got the yellow pages and we looked up all the religious institutions there, and we called them up and said, we're having this prayer service on the football field of the university, and you are invited and to come, and each of you would be given just 5 minutes to say something of peace and to bring some understanding in the community. And I said, I don't care how big your congregation is or how small you are, you're going to get just 5 minutes each. And I was surprised, we were all surprised, that Sunday morning, 700 people assembled at the football field. And everyone of the 35 religious institutions that we called turned up there, and everyone observed the rule of 5 minutes, and it was such an experience that the media focused on it, and they reported the next day that that prayer service saved Memphis from burning. Now, I don't know whether that was true or not, but that's what they felt. But then, a few months later, Facing History and Ourselves, a Jewish organization which was started in Boston and has its branches in many cities around, they were observing one of their anniversaries. I'm not sure whether it was 25th or 50th anniversary or something. But they decided to observe the anniversary using the same method as we did, inviting people of different faiths to come together and participate in a prayer. And the invitations went out in the name of the Christian and the Jewish congregation. And they held the event in a cathedral. And it was all dominated by the Christians and Jews. The others were treated as hangers-on, given a minute or two to speak. They didn't have that feeling of equality. So the whole function was, it didn't have the same impact as our function had, where we were on a neutral ground and we gave everybody equal respect. And that is very important in the work that we do. We do have interfaith groups and interfaith work going on, but it's always dominated by one particular group. And the others are sort of, you just tag along with us kind of attitude. And that doesn't work. We've got to give them respect and treat them as equals together and bring them together. I think in a sense that also works with the race issue. We generally want to bring a few nominal members of the other race into our group to say that we are multiracial. But we don't have the same respect and the same understanding with all of them. So if we want to really have this, better race relations between people, we need to show that respect and love and compassion and equality there. And this is not happening. We depended entirely on the law to put an end to the racial issue and to integrate society. The law has enabled us to be in the same room together. But there is no law on earth can make one person respect another person if they don't want to. And this is where we are stuck as a society today. We have equality of a kind in our society, but there's no respect for each other. And until we are able to build that respect for each other, we are going to have a lot of racial problems in our society. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for your wisdom and for sharing your grandfather's the stories and his life with us today. It feels so right what you're saying. I was thinking about an example that's I hope enfleshing what you're saying, and that is the new Poor People's Campaign, which is a moral movement, a movement of conscience that is trying to bring in under its umbrella all the groups, and I think they've been successful in this last spring. Since Mother's Day, there was the 40-day campaign to go to the capitals, and they were successful in going to do civil resistance or civil disobedience in 30 plus capitals around the United States, which is historic. That's never happened before. And focusing on the 4 evils or the 4 pillars. I know in the Kings Bay Plowshares action, which just happened this past April 4th, was highlighting the triplets that Martin Luther King always talked about. So it's exciting to hear the new Poor People's Campaign adding the 4th pillar. So it's militarism, racism, and extreme materialism, plus the ecological devastation. And I think, I hope that what transpires within the Poor People's Campaign, the new one, that there is the equality of the different groups that are involved in the umbrella. I know Reverend Barber and Reverend Liz Theoharis are 2 Christian-based, but it would be important to make sure that the other faith communities or non-faith communities have equal setting at the table. So thank you.
It's about the importance of living in an ashram, and can you imagine any kind of an equivalent setting here in the United States for activism?
Well, I think traditionally in the Indian culture we did have ashrams going back in history many centuries. These ashrams were either religious ashrams where people went to, be closer to their religion and practice it more, or educational institutions where one guru would be the teacher and he would have all the disciples come and live with him and learn. But grandfather transformed those historic ashrams into political action. And he started these ashrams as a way to train people into nonviolent methods of living and working. So they were basically training places. He had some very firm rules about living in the ashram, that even if you were married, you had to abstain. The women lived separately, the men lived separately, and everybody was like a big family and worked together, and we ate together and did everything together, and learned about nonviolence and practiced that. The reason why he separated the men and women is that if you want to live an ordinary life or a married life, then you go out of the ashram and live on your own. But if you want to be a soldier in the struggle for freedom, a non-violent soldier, then you can't be involved in marriage and bringing up children and all that. Then that's not your life, because that is going to constrain you from going into prisons and so on. So that was the purpose of his ashram. And whether we can have similar ashrams here or not, perhaps we can, I don't know. But the danger in this country is that it quickly becomes a cult. And although a lot of people have asked me why I don't start an ashram and create, and that's what has prevented me, because I don't want to create a cult. I want people to be able to come and learn and go out, and so, I've hesitated with that, but I'm sure it can work if we use the same principles.